I'm so very happy to welcome you all for this session here at the Prime Global Forum 2021. So this session we're going to introduce, and I'm proudly going to introduce and present the 4 members of the new Prime Global Chapter Council. And what the Global Chapter Council is about is to support Prime chapter development. The global community of Prime chapters nominated these 4 people whom I'm going to proudly present for you in a moment to this position back in March 2021. And I'm so very, very happy that all 4 of you have accepted the nomination by the community. And I have to say, I'm also very impressed to see how you have all 4 hit the ground running, if I can put it that way. In those few past months, all 4 of you have contributed significantly already by providing advice, starting up a new Prime Chapter Africa, re-establishing Prime Chapter Middle East, holding a number of webinars to engage more schools in Latin American Caribbean, and in contributing to develop Prime's significant value proposition to account for local and collective global impact, the SIP report. These are just some of the few actions that the Prime Global Chapter Council has already engaged in, besides engaging already with some of our chapter chairs in discussing future developments. Also, I'm happy to say only 2 weeks ago, all 4 of you were presenting and meeting with members of the United Nations Global Compact's correspondent, the United Nations Global Compact Global Network Council, where we had almost 100 members of Global Compact and Prime colleagues participating to discuss how we strengthen the relations between Global Compact and Prime. So that is also one of the topics, one of the tasks that the Chapter Council here will be helpful in addressing and coming up with ideas and action for how we do that even better in the future. So our session today here will act as a formal introduction of the Global Chapter Council members to at the Global Forum here today. And I will start by inviting each of the 4 Global Chapter Council members to briefly present themselves and talk about their engagement with Prime and their engagement with the wider field of sustainable development and their membership of the Global Chapter Council here with us. So after that, we will have a few discussions and some questions about the future work of the Global Chapter Council. So may I please start by inviting you, Dima Jamali, Dean at the University of Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, and before that, a lot of other impressive things. When I looked at your CV, I was thinking you've been in policy making, you've been the executive director of the UN Global Compact Local Network Lebanon. You've been engaged for a number of years with Prime. Of course, you've also been a professor in a variety of capacities, and we all know your work and are very inspired from that. So please, Dima, it's a true pleasure to welcome you here to the Global Chapter Council and to this session here today.
Thank you so much, Mette, for the very kind introduction. And I don't have a lot to add here, but I'm just going to say that really my passion is sustainability. I've been closely involved with sustainability all my life through my publications initially, and then I engaged with the private sector in Lebanon around sustainability reporting. And then I had the privilege to be the chair and the founder for Global Compact Network Lebanon in 2015. And I served as chair of the board and as president for the past 5 years. This has been an amazing learning experience that brought us as private sector much closer to sustainability, the UN 2030 agenda, that allowed me to work with a variety of stakeholders across the ecosystem in terms of advancing our understanding and action in relation to the SDGs. Very lately, I took the position of Dean at the College of Business at the University of Sharjah in the UAE. It's been a great experience, and now I'm trying to work as a catalyst within my institution and within the UAE to see also advancement in relation to the sustainability and the SDGs. Prime is very dear to my heart, as you know, Mete, because I had the honor to serve as also the chair for the MENA chapter for some time. And now we're looking to reactivate this, put it in motion, and to really have a spillover effect across the Middle East. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you and to be on this amazing council.
Thank you very much, Dima, for this introduction of your own background and of your long-standing support of Prime. Thank you so much for this. Now I'd like to hand over to Maurice, to Benny. And Maurice, warm welcome to you. I'm delighted to have you on this panel and to engage with you. And already we have achieved some success here also by establishing actually the new Prime Chapter Africa over the past few months here. And you've been very much part of that conversation as well. You are the interim dean at GIBS, Gordon Institute for Business Science, based in South Africa. And you have a long history in corporate strategy and strategic leadership, also in the private sector, bringing with you. And you are teaching all around the world, as I can see it, as part of your experience. So, and also your long-standing support for Prime and working on the ground out of GIBS. It's a true pleasure to have your support here also. So over to you, Maurice, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mete. So as part of introducing myself and in part my school and why we care so deeply about sustainability and especially the work that we're doing through Prime, I thought it would be important to also reflect on my life, which is more significant in terms of time before academia. So I only joined academia in 2014. Prior to that, I had 23 years of corporate experience. And in my work, being South African, being African, we know that this notion of decent work and economic growth is reflected in SDG 8 is really important for those that are interested in sustainability. So a significant portion of my time as a senior executive, I used to look after the investment businesses of a large corporation in South Africa, was in driving how we can invest in businesses that were interested in generating decent work and economic growth. And later on, obviously, as I moved into the doctoral work and later as a teacher, I suppose I took inspiration from SDG 4, quality education, as well as SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And I think in our context in South Africa, this was happening at a time when the quality of our education was declining, and we were under enormous attack in terms of the institutional weakening at a political level. So I made it as part of myself. My research is in the field of anti-corruption and institution building to ensure that we enhance, certainly for part of our vision, this notion of responsible leadership and responsible performance in society. As I said, I'm part of a school that has been a member of Prime for quite some time, and this is our second cycle as a Prime champion. We're very privileged to host our colleagues like Alec onto our campus in 2019 it was, Alec, when we hosted one of the Prime Champion events. Our route to becoming really recognized in the Prime schools is the work that we do in the classroom. We did some work with a European organization called WikiRate, which was then recognized as part of UN PRME, and we were then invited to be part of the Prime schools, the Prime Champion community. We've been hosting the South African local network of the UN Global Compact, and we work very closely with them. They are in our campus, and we do lots of initiatives with them. And as you said, we championed and sponsored the establishment of the Africa chapter. And essentially what really motivates me is to make sure that we operate effectively at the intersection of academia and practice, and which is part of the reason why we work so closely with the local chapter in South Africa. And our vision for the Africa chapter is for them to also work very closely with the respective local chapters of the UN Global Compact in each of the regions where the local chapters on the African continent are represented. Thank you so much, Mete, and I look forward to working with you and, of course, my peers on the Global Chapter Council.
Thank you so much, Morris, for these remarks, and also for sort of giving us a sense of all the support from GIBS and from yourself over the years with Prime, and also the importance of working with business practice and not least the global compact within, say, the family here. So thank you for this, and now it's my true pleasure to welcome Cristiano Molina. And Cristiano, you are a professor of strategy and leadership development. You are also the director of Conscious Enterprise at the Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. And maybe you have not been so many years with Prime as Dima and Morris and indeed Alec, but you come with a fresh perspective and a lot of engagement, for example, in our work with the Prime Champions. So please, very, very thankful for you being here today and for you stepping up and into the Prime Chapter Council. Please, Cristiane.
Thank you, Mette. And first of all, I would like to say that I'm really grateful and honored to be in this council. It's really a pleasure to know that someone else nominated you for this role. So it is a true honor for me to be here. And also, I'm really glad that I get to work with Morris, Alec, Dima, and yourself, Mette, because I'm learning a lot already. So thanks for that, and also greetings to everybody who's tuning into this session. I would like, and I hope that everybody's is doing great at home. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. Yes, as you said, well, I'm a professor of strategy, but since I was invited to also join the Graduate School of Business, EGADE Business School, which is the actual signatory from Tecnológico de Monterrey to Prime, I started working more and more with the topic of responsible management and responsible management education. So I would say that during the last, let's say, perhaps 5 years, my purpose found me, right? So I think I'm on the right track, and I love to be working in Prime and with sustainability, because I don't know if perhaps people know this about me, but I grew up in Nicaragua. And Nicaragua is one of the poorest countries in Latin America, poorest in terms of economic measures, but really rich in natural resources and talent. So I grew up in this context, right? And now in Mexico, being here in Mexico for 15 years now, I am concerned about why is it that we have rich countries in terms of natural resources and talent, but we still see inequalities, right? And I truly believe that business and have the power to advance that and to provide well-being and enhance the quality of life of people, and obviously while generating positive impacts in the planet, right? So I would say that education for me is the trigger, right? So by us giving the future leaders the tools and even the sensibility to this kind of problems, social and environmental problems, I think that it's a critical work for us to ensure that we are looking for a future for everyone where no one is left behind. And I have some experience also in industry, in the telecom industry, and I've done some research in stakeholders. I'm interested also in how we can bring in the interest of all the stakeholders, push these kind of topics, and move the Agenda 2030 forward. My hopes also for being here in this council is to support the strength of the chapters, because as we know, the chapters and the signatories are the ones that make things happen. So I'm really glad to be here, and I hope to contribute to the work of the council and moving the chapters forward.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Cristiane, for this, and also for pointing out the importance of students and how we also need the chapters to engage with students, and how we certainly also from the office that I sort of sit in will have to focus more on how do we mobilize students, how do we engage students, how do we also globally make students meet each other. And I know that you have already some ideas for some of this that I'll be so delighted to discuss into the future. So thank you, Cristiano, for this wonderful introduction. And now over to you, Alec. So Alec Versun, I'm so pleased to introduce you here today, and to know that I have you with me on this journey also in the Global Chapter Council. You are a senior lecturer at Glasgow School for Business and Society at Glasgow Caledonian University in Scotland. And you have a long-standing experience with Prime. I was sort of looking at it. I don't think there's any space in Prime that you have not touched. So you've truly been with us for a long time and engaged significantly in a lot of the nitty-gritty work that is needed in terms of governance structures, etc. So please, Alec, warm welcome to you as well. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mette, and to my esteemed colleagues on the Global Chapter Council. I'm really, truly delighted to be part of this. You've introduced me as Alec Versun. I am senior lecturer at the Glasgow School for Business and Society at the Glasgow Caledonian University. And our mission is the university for the common good. And so you can imagine that there is, if you like, it's a perfect fit between a mission, a university that's value-led, and a business school that's value-led, purpose-led, and Prime, which is a fabulous initiative to transform management education. Many years ago, when I was working with the UK government's Department for International Development as a private sector development advisor, little did I know that it would lead me into Prime in a way. I'm a linguist by first degree education, and I did a lot of my work on introduction to sustainable development in the Russian Federation and the Balkans after the collapse of the Yugoslavia and the collapse of Soviet Union. Indeed, some colleagues say that most of the countries I've worked in seem to collapse after I've been there. Other than that, after sustainable development, I now teach in the school Strategy International Business. My research is on pedagogies for responsible management education and on the institutionalization of Prime. I'll give you 7 points of my history in Prime. I've been representing my university in the Champions Group for the last 8 years and taken part in 4 cycles. And latterly, I was the lead author of the blueprint for the SDG integration. I was also a member of the UK and Ireland Prime Steering Committee for 7 years, and I served as Treasurer, Vice Chair, and latterly Chair from 2018 to 2020. I'm a member of the Sustainability Mindset Working Group, of which I'm an ambassador as well, and delighted to be working with colleagues around the world on that. I was a serving member of Prime Advisory Group from 2015 to 18. I also worked closely with the UN Global Compact Local Network in the UK, and I was a member of the advisory group from 2018 to 20. I'm absolutely delighted to have been designated a Prime Pioneer at the Global Forum in 2017 in recognition of my contribution to Prime in its first 10 years. And I hope that by being a member of the Global Chapter Council, I'll continue with those contributions. Now, in terms of my hopes for the Global Chapter Council, I think that what I would hope for is that both the chapters and the Secretariat see it as adding valuable and much needed capacity to our collective effort, because after all, the majority of people in our community are volunteers. And in my position, and if I was to use a sporting analogy, I can see myself as a member both of the backroom team and as a member of the Prime Chapter squad. And I see myself contributing in 3 main ways. The first one is to listen to the needs of the chapters and find ways to ensure that their needs are being met. Secondly, I'm looking forward to working with Global Chapter Council colleagues in working on recommendations to the board and to the Secretariat to support the development of chapters. And thirdly, when requested, I'd like to give chapters the benefit of my experience by participating in steering committee meetings and speaking at chapter events. I'm really excited by this opportunity and grateful for being nominated for this role.
Thank you so much, Alec, for these introductory remarks, and and of course for all your great work across the different different types of work, the different categories, the different communities within Prime that you have contributed to and will contribute to and still are very much engaged with. So thank you very much for these introductory remarks, Alec. So for those of you listening in here to this fantastic session, you can see that we have an impressive, a highly experienced, and also a highly dedicated team here for the Global Chapter Council, who bring extensive knowledge about responsible management, about sustainable development, working with faculty, working with deans, working with students, and working with each other, not least. So I would like to dive a little bit in and maybe return to you, Dima, and to sort of ask you about your views on what you sort of see as the most important role for the Global Chapter Council. I mean, again, you come sort of with your experience from also as a former Prime Chapter Chair. You also have been Executive Director of the UN Global Compact Local Network. So you bring in both those perspectives, and this is indeed something we are sort of looking for into the future, how we can you could say bridge and work together. But I would like to invite you to talk a little bit about what you see as the most important role for the Global Chapter Council.
Yeah, I think this Global Chapter Council should provide strategic direction to Prime in terms of where to focus and channel our energy over the coming period. And I see that we have multiple important milestones that we need to address. The first one on the side of course, on the side of chapters, and making ourselves available and providing the support that is needed, as aptly pointed by Alec. And also through these chapters, reaching more universities and more students. We already have a sizable community, but I think that this is a very important constituency for us, because these are really the shapers of tomorrow and future business leaders. And this is where I think we can make the greatest impact by graduating students who understand more about sustainability, sustainable development, how to be responsible leaders within their institutions. And this is something that I'm very keen to see happening through my involvement with the Global Chapter Council. On the other hand, I'd like to see bridging the gap between Prime and the UN Global Compact, and between the academic side and the business side. And I think that it's time that we do not operate in silos, that we have so much in common, and we have the UN 2030 agenda as a guiding motto for everyone who's working in this space. And here I think we have a great opportunity to forge connections between academic institutions, between chapters, academic institutions, students on one hand, and also the work of the Global Compact and the UN system and the corporates. If we bridge this gap, I think that we will have a multiplier effect in terms of taking our work and our impact much further. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Dima. Thank you very much for pointing both out, the students and also the sort of the work across sectors, academia, education, and practice, you could say, business on the other side, as one important thing for chapters. We know, of course, that chapter chairs and all our friends and colleagues in the chapters are working very hard and in very busy times. And one of the things we would like on top of this is also to grow. So we would, of course, like Prime to expand. And I personally think that the chapters, they are the backbone of Prime, and they are sort of our vehicle for that growth. So Maurice, can I sort of return to you and ask you a little bit about that growth? Because we have seen already now, we are into June 2021, and I'm happy to say, as you will know, we have already established 4 new chapters within this 2021. as I've already mentioned, the chapter Africa, where you have been involved heavily yourself, and also the new Prime chapter China, launched a few weeks ago, chapter Poland, and the establishment of the Prime chapter Iberia. So, and then we are working with DIMA, working with the Prime chapter Middle East. We're working with the re-establishing the ASEAN, and exploring a new Russia, Eurasia chapter as well. But that is sort of, you could say, new chapters and so on. But within the chapter, how can we sort of assist and help the chapters also grow in many ways? One thing is new signatories, but also growth in a number of other ways. And I would love to hear your sort of reflections about the growth thing.
Yeah. So I suppose the best way to respond to that is within the context of our role as a chapter council, in terms of how do we support the chapters and the chapter chairs, so to speak, to drive growth in each of their chapters. And for me, I want to just focus on, I suppose, one word, and that's leverage. And I think given we have the privilege of having access to chapters who are in different stages of development, and chapters who have different resources, different connections, different activities, we then have the opportunity, when we're connecting with specific chapters, to use that knowledge, that experience, that insight, to leverage those connections and leverage those resources to enable the chapter chairs to be able to articulate a strategy in each of their regions that speaks to their needs, and that speaks to them creating solutions to meet those needs. And they have actionable programs, and we then help them to actually be able to articulate how to measure those actionable programs, and to understand that we are ultimately not a performance culture per se, even though performance is important, but we are a learning culture. So that, in other words, what have you learned in the previous session, and what are you going to take forward to learn as you move forward into the next session, right? So it's not about standing still like in Alice in Wonderland and having to run twice as fast to keep moving. It's really about saying we've achieved something now. What is the next one? And what have we learned from what we achieved, so that we can move to the next action? And our contribution as members of the Chapter Council is to leverage our networks, leverage our connections, leverage our knowledge and insights. Thanks, Mette.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you very much for this, Morris. And again, I think really, and I return to the chapter Africa here, and also with you, Dima, to the Middle East. I mean, in these two cases, it's so very, very clear that those networks have been mobilized and have certainly already contributed a lot to that growth. But you're very right that it's sort of the growth, you could say, on the ground within the chapter that we will focus on in the council here. So thank you very much for that. And Cristiano, I would like to sort of take it on to you, and because I was a couple of weeks ago, I was participating with you in a wonderful webinar where you could say growth was actually the maybe not put into language, but was definitely on the agenda, because here in the Latin American chapter was inviting existing schools and universities and new schools and universities to listen in to what is Prime Latin American chapter actually doing, and etc. So I was just going to invite you to talk a little bit more about that kind of growth and your support for this.
Thanks, Mette. And I would say, yes, growth is really important, right? Because the more universities, the more higher education institutions that become signatories and become engaged in Prime, the more people we are going to reach, right? And perhaps the higher the impact. I will say that at a challenge, and I agree totally with Alec, who said we need, as council members, to listen to the chapters and to understand the challenges. So in my 3-year experience in the chapter here in Latin America and the Caribbean, what I have seen is that there's this challenge of growing, but with growing from strong roots and a good foundation, right? So it is not just a matter of just adding signatories. It's also
Yes, no, thank you very much, Cristiana, and also for sort of emphasizing the growth in actually inspiring and the knowledge exchange that is so important for what we stand for and our ambition, actually, and also drawing upon Morris's sort of notion of we are here to be a learning community more than anything. And Alec, on that note, I would love to hand over to you and sort of so have you listened to your reflections on, identity? Because we were sort of focusing on growth here. We're focusing on, setting up good governance structures, but we are indeed also focusing on identity. And this is what has already been alluded to here. And I would love to hear your sort of reflections on how the chapters and how the council here can engage the chapters in that, you could say, Prime identity work.
Well, I suppose I would look at that maybe from two perspectives. The first perspective is looking at it internally within our existing community. So we've got a wonderful community that's reaching up to 900 business schools around the world, different parts of the world. And so, the connection within and between these communities is very important. And critically, we talk about chapters, but let's not forget the other platforms, especially the working groups that are there as well, and bringing this together so it's one coherent whole that develops it. But I think in terms of identity, the critical thing, given the ambition of Prime and the mission of realize that, transforming management education, is we've got to talk more to those who are not part of the community and those who are not in the choir already. So I think we've got to balance preaching to the choir and having nice conversations amongst ourselves who are all actually, well invested in this, and we live and breathe it. And I think we've probably got to make more effort in getting outside and speaking to those who are not part of community. Because coming back to the growth perspective, we want to expand our reach and critically our impact. So it's not just about, we want to be learning, but we also want to be learning about the impact we're having, our collective impact we're having. And I think that if we can show that our impact is improving, then more and more people will want to be part of our movement. So I think that would be my first take on your question, Meta.
Yes, no, thank you very much, Alec, for this. And that's very, very, very important questions and observations you raise here. And also one of the things that we have, that you've also been engaged in the conversation about the identity of Prime in terms of, and the chapters in terms of who are we inviting, you could say, you're talking about those who are not already convinced, whom do we sort of try to invite on board in terms of business schools, but perhaps also universities more broadly, because we do have universities already as members. And for example, Cristiano, you being at the Business School, but embedded in a larger university systems as one example here. And how do we sort of engage with that as we go on into the future? How do we engage with other disciplines? We are focused on leadership, management, education. But even engineers become leaders, even biologists become leaders. So how do we sort of support that? And I would love to hear you, Dima, your reflections on this. How do we sort of engage? How do we support? To what extent should we sort of remain focused on business schools? And to what extent should we also invite other engineering sciences, technical sciences, and the natural sciences, humanities into our system?
I think this is a very important question, and I think while business schools should be the focal engine for the transformation of management education, which is our ambitious goal here, I think there is a lot of merit to being inclusive and to reaching out to other disciplines and to other schools within universities. And this is exactly what we've done. This year we held a sustainability forum. It was very much interdisciplinary. We had a youth sustainability competition at the University of Sharjah, and youth from across the university, from arts, from engineering, from communication, all kinds of youth contributed in addition to the business students. So this is really I would say, a domain that is very interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary in nature. And I think it is our role is to reach out and to leverage, like Maurice said, and to include as many stakeholders and as many other deans as possible. And interestingly, my experience here has been very rewarding, because I've seen nothing but support and openness from other deans. Although they come from engineering, they come from art, they come from communication, they've been very, very supportive and very open. And we've had multiple ventures that were common and that were very successful. So definitely, we need to do more of that, and we need to include more business schools and business deans. And here, I think, Mete, it's very important to reach out to other similar initiatives. For example, I'm part of the Globally Responsible initiative, GRLI, and this has been an initiative with lots of deans that are also interested in sustainability and advancing this conversation. So also leverage in that space in terms of reaching to parallel similar initiatives that have common interests.
Yes, no, thank you very much. And that partnershiping is very something that I really would like your advice and reflections on also as a council as we go on, because of course we cannot do this alone. We need to collaborate with our friends around the world. So thank you for pointing that out, Dima, as well. I can see that time is flying on this wonderful panel, as always, when you're in good company. So I will need to sort of take a final round with all of you, and I'll start with you, Maurice, and hand over to you. Just to, invite you for a last sort of comment about what you see as a most important next step for the Global Chapter Council here before I invite Cristiano to go next. Maurice, please, over to you.
Thank you, Mete. If I could cheat a little bit and just amplify one or two comments, one by Dima, I genuinely believe, as part of the earlier comment around growth, we do need to amplify the role of deans in Prime, because if responsible and sustainable performance and sustainable leadership is not top of the agenda of the deans, then everybody else who's trying to do it in the business schools, in the universities, will struggle to get the support they require in terms of resources and so forth. And so the fact that you've got two deans on the chapter council is a strong signal to the rest of the community that we need more deans involved. And then secondly, I would like to throw a challenge at all of us to say, we're talking about business schools and we're talking about other parts of the university system, to really actually think beyond that and think about who is involved in the broad educational ecosystem and what is our response to them. So here, for example, I'm talking about people like EdTech, people like Coursera, LinkedIn, Udemy, and so forth, because they are driving education in a different way to the way we drive education. And to what extent can PRME also play a role in driving its principles and embedding it into those digital platforms? Right? So I think there's an opportunity for us down the line strategically to have a thought about that. And then, but in terms of the most immediate next steps for us, I think it's a matter of course that for me, there are two things that I suppose really we need to accelerate in terms of moving Prime forward. One is this notion around governance and our role as Prime, as council members in helping to establish and strengthen the governance of all the chapter councils. And the other one is this notion of inclusivity. And the point that Alec was making is how do we encourage chapters to really work hard at being inclusive as opposed to exclusive? And what experience can we bring to drive that message? Thank you, Mete.
No, thank you so much, Morris, for pointing this out. Very, very well said. Thank you so much. Christiane, over to you. What do you see as important next step for the council?
Yes, and building on Dima's and Morris' comments, I would say yes, to make all of this more clear and to give all the chapters something to start, a starting point. We are working in the chapter guidelines. So, chapters can expect that in this year, we are proposing this set of guidelines and these, perhaps some tips and hints at what they could be doing to move their chapters forward, no matter where, in which stage of the journey of a chapter they are in. And there will be perhaps many things that we have to do to prepare the guidelines, right? But I will close with that and perhaps leave Alec to give us some more insights on that.
Oh, thank you very much for mentioning the very important guidelines that you are working on right now, because that is indeed very important work that is going on. Thank you, Christiane, very much. Alec, over to you. Next steps. You're muted, Alec.
Next steps, I think it's pretty simple in my mind. We've got to get into action. Number one, the council members, all of us, we've got to roll up our sleeves and crack on. Number two, we've got to learn as much as possible as we can about all 15 chapters. I know quite a bit about a couple of them, but not all 15. We've got to get up to speed and we've got to do it quickly. And thirdly, we've got to look for some quick wins, some quick win ways of supporting chapters with their development plans. You know, I see us as being there to serve chapters. So we need to do this listening exercise. We need to get there, get stuck in, and within our means, do the best possible for them.
Alec, thank you so much for this call for action. I really appreciate it. I really like it. And I agree with you. Thank you very much for this. And Dima, I'll pass on to you here for the final comment, reflection on next steps for the council.
I think I already mentioned that I see the council as very important role to play in overall strategic direction for everything we do in Prime, for providing support, for also providing leverage, as aptly pointed by Morris, and connecting the dots really. And I couldn't agree more with Alec that we need to roll up our sleeves and really get to action and do as much as we can, because we are in the pursuit of a very important mission and a very noble mission, which is to transform management education and to transform our world for the better. This is what I truly believe. And even if we play an incremental role, I think this is a contribution, a major contribution in itself.
No, thank you so much, Dima, for this final reflection here. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So if you've been watching my face over the last 45 minutes, I've been smiling, all the time, because I'm so very happy about this council. I'm so happy about everything I've heard here, and I'm very excited about the future journey with you. And I'm very excited personally to be working with you. And I'm very optimistic about all the capacity, the competence, the experience that you bring to the Prime Chapter Council here would benefit immensely the 15 and hopefully more chapters that we have in the Prime community. So a warm thank you for being here also today with me. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Mete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mete.